Namaskara. On behalf of our team, Mitra for Life, I would like to welcome all our dear parents today. It is my pleasure to welcome Mrs. Rama Bhagavatula and her daughter Pravalika. Welcome, Mrs. Rama and Ms. Pravalika. Happy to have you both for today's Mitra for Life session. Pravalika, also known as Pravi, is an energetic 22-year-old with varied interests and passions, especially in Indian classical dance and music. She was born with Down syndrome. However, her patience, perseverance, and hard-working nature has helped her truly to develop her interests and abilities. A talented dancer, Pravi has learned Bharatanatyam for the past 15 years under the tutelage of her gurus, Miss Anupama Rajesh and Miss Snehashri Srinivas. She learned Mohiniyattam for the last 9 years under the guidance of gurus Miss Janaki Nair and Miss Vinaya Narayanan. She has performed at several platforms in the US and continues to dance today too. In addition, she learns Carnatic music and also enjoys basketball, yoga, reading, writing, painting, and working with computers. She is also a Special Olympic athlete. Pravalika has completed her high school education and community-oriented job training in the US and is currently living in Bangalore. She also currently volunteers her time at Antarbhava Foundation and Anemane Organics. Pravalika, your list of interests and accomplishments are truly inspiring. And now we are excited to see your dance performance. So this dance, that is this masterpiece, which she is going to present now, is choreographed by her guru, Srimati Narmada. It is in Nata Raga and set to Aditala. Over to you, Pravalika.
Totally speechless.
Yeah, that was an awesome performance. That was so nice, Pravalika. Congratulations. That was so good. Now, I would like to introduce her proud mom, Mrs. Rama. So, Mrs. Rama, very happy to see you here in this session. Happy that you could participate. So, Mrs. Rama, a postgraduate in public administration, and a mother of two beautiful daughters. Currently living in Bangalore along with her husband, Rama has been an active volunteer in various places like schools, libraries, temples, and so on. She has organized a lot of community based initiatives like health camps, professional talks by doctors, etc. Her interests are listening to music and reading books. Currently, she volunteers at Antarbhava Foundation and Anemane Organics along with her daughter Pravalika. Now we request Mrs. Rama to share her experiences and proud moments of her life. So thank you, and over to Rama.
Thank you, everyone. It's a wonderful forum to be in. I've been associated with Mitra for Life, I think probably for the last 6 months, maybe, with Dr. Madhuri, and it's been very nice, and I've been following through all their parent sessions and things like that. So I think it's a wonderful job that's happening here. I would like to take this opportunity to thank them for having me here. Yeah, coming to our journey with Pravalika. That's really, I'm going to divide my entire talk in 3 segments. I'm going to cover the first 5 years, and then 5 to 10 years, and about that, so that it'll be easy and people can kind of frame their questions based on that. I was 24 when I gave birth to Pravi, with no clue of what Down syndrome is all about. It was a big surprise, but it took just a month for me to kind of recover from the shock. I really had a tough time explaining the parents, and from both sides, a lot of family resistance, and we just had to kind of fight through all those things to kind of make her be accepted first in the family. So that was the first step, and then somehow we just got over it. And the second challenge was the diagnosis itself, not knowing what it is and how to go about it and what exactly it is, because I never heard about it in the first place. And at that time, we came across Mrs. Rekha Ramchandran, mother of Bubbly, who had the same diagnosis as well. And she was my mentor at the first place. So we met her when Pravalika was about a month ago, and she kind of gave us a lot of positive thoughts and inputs and how to go about it. And she directed us to a genetic counselor, Dr. Prema Lakshmi Narayana in Chennai. And that's how our diagnosis of hers got confirmed, because we were like kind of, I myself as a mother was not accepting. I said, what, nothing can go wrong with me and my child. So, but then the diagnosis came, and then we kind of said, okay, what, now that we have this in hand, what are we going to do next? How are we going to rectify this, or how are we going to do the early intervention, and what are the steps that we need to take care? So everybody said, whichever doctor we went, they said, oh, they're low muscle tone and low IQ and all those kinds of things. But all they could say was, I think early intervention is the key. So we just took that key word as the early intervention, and we started working towards that. So right from when she was 2 months old, we started off with her physical therapy at home, the traditional way. And then from her 5th month onwards, we started giving her a lot of therapies here when we were in Chennai at that time. And but definitely hospitals and environments, I don't think it was a conducive thing for these children to adopt. And because we were too much in and out into the hospitals, a lot of cold and cough and those kinds of little issues that had to be handled on a day-to-day scenario. But again, when coming to the nutrition part, again, everybody said, oh, these children need a lot of nutrition, this, that, but convincing each and everybody who comes across your life as to what it is and why you're doing certain things the way it is done, right? Because we are anyway off the traditional track. We are not raising the child in the most traditional way or like any other child. So for every little new step that you have to introduce, there is a bunch of resistance. You need to voice out, you need to learn, first of all, you having as a mother, as a parent, you have to have that acceptance of the child, the situation, and then only you will have the power to fight it off. Unless we have that acceptance, I don't think you can convince anybody in the society to go on with the interventions or whatever you need to do with the child. So our journey was little ups and downs the first 1.5 years, because everything was getting delayed, and visitors coming in, everybody comparing with all the children who are born at the same age, and you know how families work, right? So this is what happened. But it was really frustrating and very stressful at that time. But then I think it was just one fine day, I just woke up. I said, you know what, I don't think I should be taking this personally to my heart, because it started affecting me personally very much. So I was not able to focus on the child rather than giving importance to all what others were saying. So then I learned my lesson the very hard way, that I should not pay attention to what others are saying, and just create a goal and focus for myself and start working towards that. So that was another fun. That was a big change which I brought within myself, and I really had to do that and take a tough call between the rest of the family or my child. What do I have to do? But my husband was very, very supportive, and he was always there, and whatever I did, he never said anything. He said, yes, let's just do it, kind of. So that way it worked really well. And then we started taking her to Matru Mandir for all her physical therapies and things like that for some time. By then we had a chance to get to, go to US, and that is where all her early intervention started. She started with her preschool there, and the school's the system itself had all the therapies in place for these children. So it all went pretty well. I used to attend all her therapy sessions, taking special permission from the school, and go there, sit and watch what they were doing in the school. The speech therapy, I'm there. Occupational therapy, I'm there. Physical therapy, all the classes, I'm there. So literally I grew up with her in the school, knowing what she is doing and what they were doing with the other children as well, with other disabilities. So it gave me, I think I was getting a lot of practical training by just being in the building, in the school building. So I would come home, then repeat the same thing, whatever they did in the school, everything. If they do at school once, then at home it was repeated 100 times, until she was not verbal at that time. She started talking only by around 3 years of age. She started walking around 2.5. She started standing by around 1.5 years. Until then, it was all just me carrying her and going everywhere. If there was a therapy, I would just go find out what they're going to be doing, how are they doing, go study them, analyze what they are doing, whether what they're doing would fit my child or not. So then come back and repeat the same thing. I would go read a lot of books. Luckily, because I don't know whether it was good or bad, we had a very good library system. I would go access a lot of books, read, and then try to modify. And then there was one book which I came across in the library. It was like a blessing. I think that is one thing I really noticed. Till now, I do notice that in my life, raising my daughter, is that when you're really down, when you really are stuck with some ideas as to what to do, how are we going to get through this situation, there is always a light somewhere at the end of the tunnel. So that is how I found this book in the library called Yoga for Special Children by Sonia Sumar. So I just brought that book home. I don't know, I think I would have renewed that book at least for about 6 times to just go over it and study the yoga poses, what she did and what really worked for Down syndrome kids. And I started doing everything at home apart from her 2 hours of school life. That's all it was. The school system accepted her, but it was only for 2 hours. The rest of the time at home, it was all about therapies, feeding skills. She had a lot of issues, feeding, swallowing, chewing, everything was a problem. But everything was turned into a game at home, and that's how it all happened. And I think I really enjoyed that process, because I did not realize that I was doing something special for her. It just became a part of me, and we were just working on it. That's all. My husband was in a job which involved a lot of travel, so I think in one way it was a big plus point for me, because I had all the time in the world just to concentrate on her and nothing else. No social life, no partying, nothing. Because when we go there again, there are these people who come to you, give you suggestions, and there are some who go behind you and imitate and criticize what you're doing. So at some point, I just cut off everything, and I said, you know what, we're not going out until we reach a particular goal of her walking or her standing. But every little thing that she did as for her development, it all turned out on a surprise note. So we would be struggling, and one fine day she would just get it. So then we will move on to the next milestone. So it was like that. Until 5 years, it was like that. It was a very big challenge. Physically, it was very tiring, but I think now when I see her dance, I think it's all worth the effort. So that is one segment of it. Now, then coming to her years from 5 to 10, that was a little different scenario, because you had this, she was in an inclusive setting in the classroom, and she had a full-time teaching assistant, and she would take notes. She was doing regular classwork. So academically, it was getting very challenging, but we did take it in a stride, because I really felt that reading and writing was going to be really, really important for her, because you're not going to be exploited if you know at least how to read and write. So we took that as a challenge, and the way we worked on her reading skills was very, very funny. I used to line up about 10 teddy bears in the room, and she would never sit. Her attention span was only about 10 minutes, not even more than that. So I would be teaching the teddy bears. So then she would come into the room, sit, and then start answering. So it was more like a teacher and teddy bear game, which was being played between me and the teddy bear on the wall with all the letters and words in it. And she would see, she would remember, and then she would repeat it. But she would not verbally communicate, but she was pointing out at all those words. So the entire room was just filled with letters and words. Anywhere we see a sight word, that would be taken a printout, cut it, and we put it on the wall. So that's how the learning happened. So apart from that, she had a very good set of teachers in the school who were really motivating and very encouraging for her. And for her ability, they really did not push her. They said she will do it, but don't worry, it was like that. But surprisingly enough, with all the efforts we were also parallelly putting at home, she was in the current grade level for her first grade. So which was really achieving, and they were really proud of. The teachers were really happy for her to do that. The same thing with the math. She likes doing repetitive tasks, which we figured out at a very early stage. So we figured out that anything that she needs to learn, it has to be repeated. 100 times, 200 times doesn't matter. She has to get it. But once she gets it, she doesn't forget it. That's her biggest plus point, I think. She has a very good memory power. And we are, I think, capitalizing on that memory power. So we may be a little selfish on that part, but we just want her to achieve. And from the early years itself, she would be very interested in a lot of Telugu movie songs and things like that. So whenever a Telugu movie song or Hindi songs come on the TV, she would just sit and dance. She would just sit and bounce on the floor, because it was a carpeted floor. We wouldn't really, it wasn't hurting her much, I guess, but she would do it. The higher the music goes, the higher the jumping she would do, just sitting. So anybody who comes home, they would make fun, and of her doing that. And even today, there are a couple of people who would ask me, hey, is she still jumping and bouncing and dancing? It really hurts me, but at the same time, I just don't want to, say anything to them. But that's how much interest she had in music and dance. And sitting in the carpet, watching those movie songs, she would just imitate the actions immediately. And parallelly, first time she would watch the song, the second time she would imitate, the third time she has already gotten the step. So looking at that, we found that probably, you know, given the condition of hypertonia and all those things, hypotonia, we thought we should do something. Instead of giving her regular physical therapy, why can't we make it just a little more fun thing for her to look forward to? Otherwise, it's always a crying session. We don't want that to happen. So we approached a couple of teachers in the area in US. And a couple of them were resistant and not willing to, but then there was this one teacher, the Kara and the Guru Anupama Rajesh. She said, you know what, I want to challenge her myself by teaching her. Why don't you just bring her to the class? So that's how our journey in dance started. By then she was just standing and walking a little bit, but it was not with full strength. So we said, okay, let us just, my first statement to her teacher was that, Anupama, I just don't want her to be performing anywhere. I just want her to be in a class with other students and see what they are doing, because that is one kind of social life that they really enjoy. So she said, okay, that's fine. Let's not make her dance. She can just come into the class. You just bring her whenever you have time. You can just bring as and when, and she can sit and watch. That sitting and watching happened to be, you know, her starting point. And one fine day, she just walked into that group class and started dancing with the other students. It wasn't a good day. I don't even know on which day we went. She just started off. Then we said, okay, let us officially start now. And that was the beginning of all her dance classes. And Anupama Rajesh was really a backbone in her, encouraging, and whatever she did, yes, let's just do it, kind of. And after a point, she said, okay, you know what, I think she has learned a few numbers. Let me just put her on the stage. I really was resisting. I said, I am not going to make her go on the stage because I really have my own doubts. I don't know whether she'll be able to keep up with the music. I'm not too sure whether I hope she doesn't go and forget. You know what, all that fears, the natural fears as a mother, what you have when you have the child getting on the stage for the first time. And I was in tears. I was in tears when she went on the stage, and she was in a group dance, okay? And I believe the teacher said that I think she was the only one who did all the steps that I have taught her without missing anything. And even though there was a little time lag, she did everything. So don't ask me any further. You're just bringing her. I'm not going to put her in a group class. I'm going to do one-on-one. And that is where she took on private lessons with her teacher, and the journey started even more rigorous. Parallelly, by then she was in her middle school, and at home there were a lot of other developments which we were parallelly working on, which are typical for that age. I was working with her independent skills, like I was making her lay her clothes to get ready for the school, you know, write a chart. We used to work with pictures, and every day of the week we used to, Sunday evenings, we would make her sit and pick up her clothes for the rest of the week school, because we don't have uniforms there. So it was always with, during winter clothing, summer clothing, and all those things were differentiated. We were teaching her how to identify all those things, while parallelly they were doing these things at school. It was not at a vigorous level, but most of the things were done at home. And her feeding, her eating habits got improved. You know, we started teaching her how to use the spoon and mix the food and eat and all those kinds of stuff. And also the speech was becoming a big challenge because there was not much of clarity. So I said, whatever speech therapy she is getting at school, that is good enough. The rest, I think our Indian system has the best of the speech therapy available. In the sense, I would deliberately make all her hard snacks like murkus, chaklis and all that, and keep giving her baby carrots to keep chew on. I used to keep giving her a lot of things which will keep her jaw activated all the time, and that kind of really helped with her speech. And then by then we were becoming very active in the local temple, and they said, you know what, why don't you just bring her to the temple? We are having some religion classes. I was so doubtful whether, you know what, presenting her in an Indian community is a big challenge, because I did face a lot of challenges in the first 1 year when we were here in India. In Chennai, the moment you step out, somebody would see and then say, you know what, you go to that temple and you do this puja, this will come, this will get rectified, that will get rectified. So it was scary. At one point, I started feeling scared to even step out of the house with a child. But then once I decided that this is not going to work this way, I used to take her everywhere, even to the little market. If I have to go and buy green chilies for my mother-in-law, I would take her with me. So that is how the exposure started. And I said, you know, unless we expose them to the community will not know what it is all about. So that's how parallelly the community introduction happened at a very young age itself. And all those things we were parallelly working on. But the main focus was during up to her 5th grade and 7th grade, where her reading and writing skills and her academic and her comprehension skills. That is where we were working on. And in the meantime, she had some thyroid issues, but overall her health was, we were trying to maintain her health to the greatest possible extent by giving only homemade foods. We never gave her sugars. Even today, she is deprived of sugars. We don't give her the white sugars. We eat a lot of millets, and I've changed her diet completely, because knowing the scenario that these kids tend to become obese by the age of 10 or 13. So that is where the obesity starts. So we started her diet plan right from a very young age. We give her a lot of high fiber foods and less carbs, less of bad fats and good fats. It's a typical, you know, the proper diet system that we want to follow. That's what it is. And her diet includes a lot of vegetables and very, very less quantity of rice. That's what we are still following. And we are very careful about what junk food we give, what extra food she gets and things like that. But she really sneaks and she enjoys parties. She's a social animal. She's a party lover. So she keeps dancing. She can keep dancing until for New Year parties. She's the only one dancing until 4 o'clock in the morning the next day. So she loves dance to that extent. But so the nutrition part is being taken care in the house, and then the other independent skills of trying to learn how to make apply jam on a slice of bread and things like that. See, the basic things we are, as and when we are asking her to do it. So it's not like anything, a specific time that is devoted to her, sit and make her do. No, it was not at all like that. And first and foremost, we never treated her as a special child, and even today we don't. But in some scenarios, yes, you tend to start making that little effort to make them understand a little bit more than a normal child. But she doesn't like it anymore if we say that. But that's a different story, because she's grown up and she thinks that she doesn't have a problem, which is very nice, because that's a positive attitude. That is what is helping her sail through. And the other thing is, so the middle school life was a little more challenging, because kids at that age are more into having boyfriends, girlfriends, or at least talking about it. So we were having issues with all those things as well. But being in a different country, she tends to go with the same skin, same color, right? So she had more of Indian friends, and she would talk more about them. All those things were happening, but it was fun. I just let her have her moments of enjoyment and happiness because of all those things. So that was a big thing. But until 8th grade, she was having the aid in the classroom and the academics were going on well. But then after high school is a big transition from elementary to middle and middle schools. So it's a big jump. So we were really, really worried. I don't know how she's going to handle, because the kids are so big and their talk is different, their behaviors are different. How is my child going to fit in that group? That was the biggest question mark I always had. But thankfully, from the high school, they had this Best Buddies program, which is a really, really welcoming thing, because these kids are usually paired with the typical kids in the classroom, and they are the support system for them. No more aids. The aids are all gone. So now they just grow among other typical peers. You won't believe it was from her in high school that she learned how to tie her hair with a rubber band, because a peer had taught her. When I attempt to teach something, she would say, no, you don't know. Alexis knows it very well. I will go and get it learned from her. So she would go with her hair down and then go to the school and get it done. So that was the amount of relationship she had with her friends as well. And then most of the time she would just sneak in from her class and go run. They were given like 2 minutes to switch between the rooms. So it's a huge building. She had to navigate herself from one place to the other for the next class. She was almost doing all the regular classes with her regular peers with only slightly modified syllabus. The rest of the things she was able to handle, because I think giving her that independence to go talk to somebody, approach if there is a problem, and problem solve herself, gave her that confidence to get into a normal classroom. I think that was a big step. But at the same time, we were also slowly, we as parents, we were thinking, now that she's going to be in high school, after 3 years, what are we going to do? What is going to be her plan? So I started a business, home-based business at home, and we were doing that. And I used to involve Pravalika more in that, because it was mainly started for her. I wanted her to have some kind of a financial support system later on, once she comes out of high school. But that was the long-term plan. And moreover, what happens is after a particular point, all the kids who keep playing with them, they just move on, because they start developing their own friend circle, and these kids are left out. So I figured out that having a business, and that too based at home, you're inviting people at home. So people used to come, so she used to interact with them, talk to them. She would prepare flyers for my sale, for my business. And then sometimes I would just let her handle the customers all by herself. But she is there always watching me, what I am doing. Parallelly, during all these times, I was also volunteering. I was also part of the community group, where I was organizing a lot of events for the spouses of my husband's company. So that's how my volunteering journey also started parallelly. And I think that was a big step, because somewhere I felt that I need to start letting her go and be independent, and I need to have some time for myself and start creating a channel for me. Because every time I can't be behind her, and now she doesn't even need me anymore much, unless the supervision and certain things, yes, we need that guidance here or there. But so the business was a big thing, because that really helped her grow very well, and that gave her confidence. We used to step out of the house, hold exhibitions, and she would be there helping me sell. She was also part of the Girl Scouts, and that really, the girls there were very accepting, and they were teaching her a lot of other things, which they were including her in her playtime and all those kinds of things. So we made sure that she had at least 2 to 3 days of social time with some kind of friends somewhere. So be it an adult, be it kids of her own age or under her age. So somewhere that interaction was happening, human interaction was happening, and that really, really helps them in their mental well-being. That is one thing I noticed. It keeps them healthy, because these kids tend to go down in their emotional well-being very, very soon. So it's really important for us as parents to keep that motivation going. I know sometimes we do feel it's very overwhelming. Then we just invite somebody to come over, and then it becomes a big change for us as well to kind of come out of that shell and involve with somebody else and have a general conversation. And then she is there listening, and so all those things she watches, and that's how she learned how to greet somebody, how to be nice to somebody when somebody comes home. All those basic manners, everything was like kind of a practical exam, coaching happening at home with us. So that is one part of the journey. And parallelly along with these, the dance classes were going very, very rigorous. We tried doing ice skating for some time, but that did not work all that great, because she fell down, and after that she was so afraid to get onto the ice again. So we stopped it, and that is when we switched to dance. And we never knew that this is going to go this long, and she is still continuing, and I hope she will continue as well. So, and after her high school, during her high school, she was selected as a prom queen. And it was a big surprise for all of us. There was a typical Indian boy who came and asked us to go for the prom dance with him. And we agreed for it. And whole school made a big deal out of it. And finally, she was crowned the prom queen. So after, with all those happy memories, I think we just decided all of a sudden that we have to move back to India, because we felt that she needs to start specializing even more in her art form. So, and aging parents and things like that. So we decided to move back. But her Mohiniyattam journey started while we were in India, US itself, when we happened to take her, and we never missed any of the dance programs or any of the Indian-based cultural programs there, which was happening. So she would enjoy. Her first row and first seat was always reserved for Pravalika, next to the video camera. So that's how her spot was reserved in the temple, and everybody knew her very well by face and by her, they would interact and all those things. So she was looking forward for all those trips. Then in one of those Mohiniyattam programs, she watched that, and then she went and approached the teacher right after the program, and she said, hey, your dance was very nice. I would like to learn Mohiniyattam. Will you be able to teach me? She just went and asked the teacher directly. By then, her speech, everything was like kind of in place, and she was almost near normal. So now I think our journey is just here with dance and her volunteering. Of course, with the corona, she is trying to keep herself active and busy with her own schedule. She is very good in keeping herself organized, and she just follows that routine through. And I think with this, probably I will just have to leave for time for some question and answers.
Thank you so much, Rama. I have one question. I think I even, 2 weeks ago when we featured another parent, Arpita was also here with us today.
Yes, I was there in that session.
You were there. Okay. I mean, such inspiring stories. I mean, I really don't know. I think we only have so much of learning and takeaways from all of you that we can also apply it to our own kids, the way system, how to bring in, discipline and, give them hands-on training and not treat them as something very special, just make them part of our lives every day in our day-to-day activities and so on and so forth. But with Pravalika, how did you manage adolescence? Did you talk to her about it? How did you prepare her for the biological change that was, going to happen, maybe when she just got into a teenage age?
Yeah. That was pretty interesting, because we started all that coaching for her right when she was in her 3rd grade itself, because we know that these kids will start, they take a lot of time in understanding certain things. We never got into too much of the details of why it is happening and what it is happening. You just tell them that this is what it is, how you will do it when this happens, how you handle yourself. So that was a big step. But the teachers really guided me very well in the school. We had a lot of picture clues and visuals happening, and I was actually I was more a practical coach for her, I would say. But I think with all that, she just needed maybe a couple of months of visual coaching on that, but not an in-depth coaching. They just said, okay, this is what it is. This is what you have to do. This is how you do it. We make sure that we are clean. We are, all those kinds of little things. They talked about the hygiene. They talked about how you talk to parents about all these things. To whom do you talk about all these things? All the other essential information which we need to make them aware of for their own personal safety. All those things were handled in the school, and parallelly at home. They would send me the materials back home, and we were a lot of doing, I think most of our learning happened in the form of role play. So I would do something, she would copy, then I will make her do something, and then I would copy it. So that's how we were correcting each other. And until she got something perfect, it was always in the role play. I think they learn it better that way, rather than making them sit with a book and ask them to read and understand. It doesn't work. It doesn't help. I have seen so many parents. I had a huge set of Indian families where they had these kinds of scenarios, but they are still struggling. But they always keep asking me how we did it, but this is what it is. But believe it or not, on the day when actually things happened, whatever that need to be happened, she didn't even tell me. She just went, handled it herself, all by herself. And even today, she thinks that it's a secret that should not be told even to me. So I take that as a big compliment for me, because that's what you want. So she's pretty good about that. And after a few years, actually, when she was about to enter into high school, we really had to tell her that there is a condition and this is what it is and this is how you will be. Because parallelly we were having a lot of bullying issues happening, and all those kinds of things were also being addressed hand in hand. So multiple things were happening at the same time. Right from kindergarten, there are bullying happening, playground equipment, you go, somebody would do something wrong, ultimately the blame would fall on these kids because they're not able to communicate. So there you are there. So every time you need to show your presence in front of the teachers to show that you are taking care of your child and you're following through what is happening in the school. So it is just not that she going to school and coming back and me taking a social break. No, it is not that. It's always like you're on the system, you're on the emails, or you're on the phone talking to each one of the teachers once a week. A routine call was made to the teachers to find out what happened in the school and how she took it and what corrections we need to do. And I would come up with some. So it's always a teamwork. I think that really helps. And I think it's just not fair to expect anything from the teachers alone. It is a lot of homework that needs to be done from our end to see the end result. That is one big step. And finally, when we had to tell her, initially there was a little bit of resistance. She was a little sad and upset about it, but then we kind of brought in a lot of books, we showed a lot of examples, and then finally she is convinced that yes, she does need some help, but not in all the things. So because once in a while when she gets mad at us, she keeps telling that she's going to go and live independently in a house and that she's not going to let us in because she'll buy a dog, and we don't like dogs. So that's how it is. She's pretty very good and independent about all those things now. And she enjoys cooking. She enjoys making me a meal because once in a while, if I go down with my low back pain or something like that, she's there she's my massage therapist at that time. She's ready with all the heat pack, ice pack, whatever, you name it, she is there with me. And she just cannot see me lying down. That's all, period. So I think she is my energy, and that's where I draw it from. And maybe that's what made me do these things. I don't know. I think I'm really a channel, that's all. I think she has put more, about 200% of her efforts to where she is today.
Correct.
If she did not cooperate, I don't think we would have been able to do anything, right? So I don't think we should ever take that credit for us. So.
Right. So let's just take a few more questions. I know you have shared some photos and videos, but
Yes.
I think I think it's close to an hour right now. So we'll just take questions, and then in between, if I find time, I will just share the short presentation that I've made.
Sure.
Yeah, please go ahead. So, Sheetal, did you have any question? Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to know that Pravalika is not the only child, right, Rama ma'am?
Actually, yeah, when we had our second child when she was 7 years old, and then I think my second daughter plays a much more major role now in her growth, because she is able to connect more well with her, because right now she's in 11th standard. So she thinks, what, my sister is there, you don't have to do anything. In fact, today, most of the makeup, she got it done only from her. So she says, you're not going to be there for me. And my sister will do it. So yeah. She's a big role model, and she's a big support system for the family. I can't describe her any better.
Okay, there are a few questions from the parents. Pushkar Girish. She says, I'm curious to know which part of the US did the child have schooling. We lived there for 5 years and I worked in the school district in special days classes with children with profound disability.
We were in District 204, Naperville, Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah, actually,
Then,
Illinois is supposed to, District 204 is supposed to have a very good special ed program. So we just happened to move there, and then after we moved, we figured out about the program and everything. But her initial part of early intervention from like up to 3 years of age was done in San Antonio, Texas. That is where when we went for a short trip for about 8 months, and that 8 months was a strict journey for us in making her stand up and walk. That is where she was literally not very, very low in her muscle tone. So we had the therapists come in and do, and then we were doing the early intervention measures there at home.
So she never stayed in a special day class. She was always in a regular ed with a aid, is it?
Yes, yes. She was always in an inclusive setting.
Oh, thank you.
he also wants to know who is her current dance teacher.
Yeah, actually, currently she is learning under Guru Snehashree. She is a senior most disciple of Guru B. Bhanumati. So actually, she is a part of a student of the Nritya Kalamandiram of Guru B. Bhanumati as well. But Snehashree ma'am is her direct instructor, so she learns from her. Once in a while, ma'am also guides us through regarding the selection of the songs and things like that. So she is in touch with Bhanumati ma'am, and that's how we coordinate, and her classes are happening. Right now, all her classes have moved to online. And for Mohini Atam, she is learning under senior most disciple of Guru Bharati Shivaji, Padma Shri Bharati Shivaji ma'am from New Delhi. And her teacher's name is Vinaya Narayanan. So we go to 2 different places for 2 different dance forms. So we are all over the place in Bangalore now.
Thank you.
And there's one more question from Deepa. She says she has a son who is also having Down syndrome, and he is not at all interested in writing. So she wants to know how to improve his writing skills.
See,
some
writing,
suggestions.
See, initially when even before we introduced Pravi to writing, we used to give her fat brushes to sit and paint and play with colors. So right from preschool, a lot of her paintings got selected in her exhibitions and things like that. So she is always painting. So giving them something fat in their hands gives them a lot of grip for the thumb and the index finger, even before you give them a crayon or a pencil to hold on. So that is the first step. Give them a lot of rough papers, make them just play around with colors as much as possible. And then the next idea, what we implemented and it worked, was buying an easel and a blackboard and make them stand and work, because when they are standing and working with the brush, the wrist and this strength improves. So that really helps again with holding, when it comes to the point of holding the pencil and pen. So that grip, again, writing with a chalk, then slowly, you start introducing a lot of different other mediums for them to hold in the hand. And sometimes you give them coins to put them in the piggy bank. So you're giving a lot of work to these index and the thumb, which really makes them be aware of it. First of all, creating awareness in their body parts is very, very important. So you kind of sensitize them that way. So if you go to therapies, they give some therapeutic materials which are not there at home all the time. It's not necessary that we have to have a stock of everything. So at home, whatever we have, if you are cleaning the dishes or you're organized, putting away some vessels, ask them to hold it. So they have to keep touching different mediums all the time, give them like slightly warm things to hold on, cold things. So the sensitization of the fingers is a must. And the other thing is you have to strengthen the thumb and the index finger. That happens in the form of giving them a lot of thick brushes and then chalks And then if you can get some thick crayons, nowadays I think they do make some special crayons for these kids. Earlier it wasn't there. So I used to kind of get all these old broken crayons, sit and melt them at home, make them into a bigger crayon in a mold, and then give that. So that way she was holding it and painting, coloring with the crayons. And then is the last step to introduce your pencil, and then only the pen. So don't try to introduce everything in the first instance, and it may not work, and they get frustrated very easily. Don't make it long sessions. Only 10 minutes at a time is what you need to work with these children to get there, and 10 minutes is good enough for them to understand what you're trying to do. The fourth time, they will come back and sit on their own and try to leave their materials just like that without not putting them away, because they have to keep seeing those things all the time. So without even our knowledge, one fine day, they will go pick up the pen and start writing, scribbling something. When they are scribbling, let them scribble as much as possible. Ask them to scribble on the wall, different surfaces. All those things help, really help. And again, trying to write in big size letters help in the first stage. And then I also followed a program called Handwriting Without Tears. That program really helped, because that really teaches how the hand movements go for the cursives and for the regular capitals and things like that. So you can, I haven't checked that website recently yet, but I'm sure there are typical resources available. Something like that also would really help. And our typical Desi platform vendors, whatever they sell, the cursive writings and see and copyright books, those also help solve the problem to some extent.
Okay. Thank you, Rama. I'm just quickly going over these pictures. So if you could just, just describe what's happening. I'll just move on from one slide to the other.
Yeah. Sure. Actually, this slide where you're seeing the farm and where she's holding all these things is her volunteer work, which she's doing at Animane Farms. She is exposed to different kinds of experiences there. One day it is harvesting, one day it is seeding, one day it is sieving, one day we are working with compost. We are making her touch different mediums and walk on different surfaces. That's how her gross motor is still being maintained, because I think while all these plus points are there, one big disadvantage with these kids is that they tend to forget easily what they have learned. So everything has to keep coming in a cycle. Today you have practiced writing. After 4 days, you have to come back to writing, because again, it'll be, ground zero. So you have to keep implementing and circling around the same things over and over again to keep the ball rolling. Otherwise, it's very easy for them to slip from their learning. So her gross motor is taken care here, and then she's being sensitized and things like that. And here she is doing a garland, and this was one of her COVID activities. I said, you know what, we are bored, what do we do? I got some jasmine flowers, and I was teaching her how to do it with the needle and thread. So she enjoyed really, and she started having it in her hair. And the other one where we had all our dolls for the Navratri, she was also instrumental in working along with her sister and set up the whole thing. And the other one is her paintings, which she does in her free time. She has attended a 6-month hobby course in Chitrakala Parishad, and there she really improvised quite a bit on that, and she continues to do that. Now she takes the help of YouTube or magazines, any pictures she sees, she'll just get some ideas, she'll close it, and she'll just do what she wants to do. I don't discourage anything what she's doing. So every day she'll say, Mom, I have this plan today, I'm doing painting, I'm doing this, that. So as long as you're keeping yourself busy, that's good in a useful way. And one day of the week, she always comes up and she says, today is my chill day, you don't tell me anything to do. So that also is her agenda. So she decides what to do, and that's her sister. And this is again during the COVID time that I'm teaching her how to make pasta, and she enjoys making it. So she enjoys cooking and helping me around. She helps cutting vegetables, peeling them, all those things. So everything is a part of our life. We just kind of involve her, and I get her to do whatever I'm doing. I'll call her, hey, Prabha, I'm doing this. Let's do this together. So that's how the learning happens. Some days she's not in a mood to come to me and do along with me, but I don't force. but then she will come back again, and she'll figure out how I'm doing and learn it. That is in Antarbhava Foundation. She's having one of those fun moments. See, when we go after her dance class or after her Bharatanatyam class, she goes there to meet all her friends. And she has a little fun time with Janki and Revati over there. So that particular picture, Janaki ma'am was teaching her how to make some garbage bags. So. And this was her performance in our community for Diwali. So she enjoys being the center of attention. So
yes. So
yes.
this is Rama. This is
some question there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd just like to say something. Absolutely inspiring story. Of course, we love Pravalika. She's such a, people's person. She's such a joy to interact with. And of course, we have seen her session on mudras in the past. And what a wonderful, journey you've had with her. Thank you for sharing it with us. The other thing I want to say, while you were talking, I just wanted to sort of reiterate a few more things about what you said. So one is, I find a lot of parents who say, we were not able to find a guru, we were not able to find a teacher, right? But I think it's a journey. If you keep looking, you're determined, somebody will agree. And, we have these absolutely wonderful musicians, dance teachers, artists who will take them on, and they literally become, not just a teacher, but a guru to them in so many ways. So I would tell all the parents, just stay with it. You will find it, like Mrs. Rama shared, at the right time, something will click if it is meant to be, right?
In fact, Bharatanatyam theatre here in India, I found only when I got an invite to go for an Arangetram through my younger daughter's school. One of the students, she brought an invitation from the school and she gave me, Mom, let's go to this Arangetram. And that is where I went. And I found it was, the student was the disciple of Guru Bhanumati ma'am. And I called ma'am and I said, you know what, this is the situation. How are you going to handle it? Do you think you can take her in? And ma'am was so kind enough and she said, no, everybody has their own pluses and minuses. Just bring her and I want to see her. And then I will put you in right with the right person who will really take her upon and all that. So more than the teachers, I think apart from dance, they are her mentors actually. Nowadays, if I have a problem, I just tell them, what it is, and they speak to her. And I think that really works. I think having external mentors in your life for your child, it really matters a lot after a particular point of life.
Absolutely. The other thing I wanted to also mention here, like you said, whether the child is going to an inclusive setup or is going to a special school, it is not entirely up to the teachers or the special educators to teach. It is teamwork. And here I think I work with a lot of parents where they're saying, the school is not delivering on what they promised, or the teachers are not delivering. And I don't believe that is a solution at all. I mean, it has to be the parent who is completely behind the child, and the teacher or the special educator, becomes somebody who just gives a technical guidance. But what is done at home is very, very significant to their progress, right? So I wanted to share that for all the parents of the younger children, especially. And as Rama, I'd also like to say, I love the bond between the sisters. I think it's so crucial. It's such a wonderful thing. And again, to all the parents of the younger children of this group, please make sure this happens. The bond between your children will sort of really stay with them through life, and it's a huge plus point. Yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to come in with these notes. Yes. Back to Sujani or Mrs. Sandhya.
I'm just going through the chat window to see if we have any more questions. I think Mrs. Sudha says, to make him an Olympian in swimming, they went through similar issues that you also spoke about. We featured Mrs. Sudha, I think maybe last month, where she
Yeah.
shared her journey in, how her son is now, a professional coach, a swimming coach in Bangalore. And so one more question is, did any medicines improve Down syndrome speech? I don't
No,
know.
actually, initially we some multivitamins and all that from a doctor who came from US at the time when she was born. That particular doctor was in Chennai. So that, and he was coming to Matru Mandir to see all the other Down syndrome kids. Matru Mandir is a school for Down syndrome kids alone. So they were doing all the therapies there. We took her there, but then, 2-3 years we were on that medication and things like that. But apart from that, I felt like our Indian diet, is the best. That's what I figured out in my journey in raising her, because there are so many pluses and minuses and so many things the teachers and the doctors were telling me over there. But still, at the end of the day, I would just go and argue with my doctor or my endocrinologist, stating that, what, this is what I am doing to keep her weight at control. So every time we would go to the visit, he would put her on the weighing scale and he would ask me, what are you doing to make her weight be on top within the range? She's nowhere in that, beyond that point. But we were just eating our own Indian food, a typical simple home meal, and that really made a lot of difference. And of course, for the school, it was a special lunch and all those kinds of things. But once she is at home, this is what we would give. And in high school and all, there were a lot of incidents where they would give cookies, and food was always given as a reward. I really fought with the teachers and I said, I'm not going to let my child have food as a reward. Give her 1 hour of library time per week as a reward for all her things that she has achieved, accomplished that week. So that's how strict and controlled we were as far as food is concerned. But I think medicines wise, nothing much, not really. I don't think there are any also which might really work. So
Right. Thank you so much, Rama. I think we need to wrap up now. There's one more question. There's somebody asked for more information on Antarbhava Foundation. I think you can Google it. They're also on Facebook. So you can find more information on them. You can look them up on the social media platform. But if you need more information, you're free to connect with us and also Rama.
And they were also on Mitra. They were featured,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We have a video. We also have an informative video on them. So you can look them up on our site also. And I'm sharing their website here.
Yeah, you can also go to our YouTube channel. It's Mitra for Life, and you can find Antarbhava's video featured in our YouTube channel as well.
Arpita says, so very inspiring. You are a superhero.
The child is the superhero, and I think we are getting a little bit of that energy radiated towards us. That's all, I guess.
Somebody has to fix the cape and all the costume of the superhero, That's when they become it. So that's the mothers, all of you out there, absolutely inspiring and amazing. So yeah, I'll leave the official thanks to Sujani or Mrs. Sandhya.
Yes, Sandhya ma'am. Sandhya ma'am, you're on mute. Sandhya ma'am.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Pravalika, for such a wonderful dance. Let's start from there. So beautiful. I like the beats, in fact, to the music. It was so perfect that she didn't go off the beat at all. Very easy to go off beat in dance. So she's understood the music and the dance. So that's the way to look at it. That's how she's able to do so well. So congratulations, Pravalika, and we wish you many, many, many platforms to showcase your talent, be it in some of the volunteering you're doing, or be it in any other platform. So all the very best for that. So wishing you a great success, Pravalika. So that is from Mitra for Life. We want to tell you from our team. Then Rama ma'am, I mean, the upbringing matters everywhere. As a mother, it's, how much ever we do, at the end of the day, even I'm a mother, somewhere, we feel, oh, maybe we should have done when we, after some years, maybe I should have done that. Maybe I should have done this. I mean, that's how it is. How much ever we do, we are not happy, but then you have hats off to you. Like you have kind of understood what she likes. That's the important thing in life. What our children like and how do we develop that? I mean, that's what you have done. So kudos to you, hats off to you. I have no words to appreciate your efforts which you have put in. And I'm sure all our team members feel the same way. So thank you very much for being a part of our program, and wish you good luck, Pravalika and Rama, for more and more programs for Pravalika to happen and in her life for a bright future. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
It was very nice being in this forum, and I think sharing and inspiring others. Thank you so much, Mitra, and thank you, Dr. Madhuri, for giving me this chance to, share my journey with everybody. Thank you so much.
We thank all the parents who joined today. Hope definitely, there is a takeaway in every program. So in this program also, there was many takeaways. So thanking every parent who joined us today. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rama. We run only on inspiring stories like yours and a lot of the other mothers who've shared with us. So thank all of you, and for everybody who's here today. Our main aim is to motivate. So do join us every week. Before we end, we have a short video of what Mitra for Life actually does for whoever missed it at the beginning. We'll end the call at the end of that. So thank you all so much. Sorry, just a minute. Yes. So thank you all again. We hope to see you in the next few weeks. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Thank you, Mrs. Rama.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.